Now let's look at the core patterns and the mantra for walking upstairs. We're going to begin with the placement of the heel, shifting the weight, shifting forward, pushing up, and then placing the next foot on the step. The core pattern that we're going to be using here and the mantra is going to begin with push. Pushing from the rear leg hip on the ground, pushing to get the heel onto the step. So push again, extension of my left hip in this scenario, and I have my turn and tuck on the left. So that's the first part. Push. Now we have tuck to shift the weight onto the step, turn to begin lifting, and then push again, now from the hip on the step. And then we go again with tuck. Now I'm tucking on the free leg side to bring the swing leg up onto the step, turn to shift forward and up, and then now push from the hip on the top of the step. Push, tuck, turn, push, tuck, turn. Push, tuck, turn, push, tuck, turn, push. When we get to the top, from the end of the push with the left hip, now we lift from the left hip to engage the swing through again. The important things to note: from this position, we first have to tuck on the side where the leg has hit the stair to bring the forefoot down. Tuck. Then we turn and we begin to move up as we turn. But keep in mind, the extension of the hip is still on the rear leg as I do the tuck and the turn. So as I push, my left hip glutes are engaged. As I tuck, it's still the left-sided glutes that are engaged. As I turn, it's still the left-sided glutes that are engaged. And now I switch to push on the right. Let's look at this again. Beginning from the push, the first thing we have to do to bring the forefoot down onto the step is tuck. As I do that tuck, I still have extension of my rear leg hip. And then now I need to do the turn. That's when I'm going to start to raise the body, but I'm still using extension from the rear leg hip. I'm not pushing from the forward leg hip. Only after I've engaged the turn, and my knee should now be lined up towards the front of the toes, now I'm going to push up because I have my center of gravity in the right position. We can't push up from here or even from here. We have to be shifted forward to this position before we can push up. The mistaken concept of pushing up too soon is why you'll hear a lot of YouTube instructors telling people to lean forward in order to get their center of gravity over the front leg so they can engage their glutes. We are always engaging our glutes when we're going upstairs, but the proper side of the glutes is critically important. We're engaging my left side glutes all the way up until here. Now the right side. Right side, now the left side. Then we're going to engage the hip flexors after we push up. Remember, we have just engaged the glutes to push up. Now we have to engage the hip flexors to pull forward. That pull forward is the lift. Now let's look at the pattern of core movement and the mantra for walking downstairs. Before I do that, I'm going to have to give you two new mantras that I didn't explain earlier in the video. The first one is going to be set or settle. And that's going to be, we looked at earlier, this shift of weight from one side to the other. Settle is going to be the action of the hip as we pull it forward or up, flexing our right hip as we engage the turn and tuck on the left to settle the weight onto the left. And as we settle the weight onto the right, we're flexing the left hip. So the hip action is going to be on the opposite side of our waist action as we settle. And that hip action is going to be simply pulling up or flexing the hip, as opposed to pushing or extending the hip. So that is settle. And then we have collect. And settle, we're shifting the weight while leaving both legs on the ground. And collect, we're going to collect all of the weight onto one leg. When we're in this position, I have my right hip flexed and I have my turn on the right and my tuck on the left. So all of the rotation from the waist is turning towards the left leg. That allows me to collect all of my weight onto the left leg, my spine directly over the left leg. So that is collect. We often combine settle and collect when we are shifting onto one leg. We first settle the weight onto the leg, then we collect the weight onto the leg. And part of that motion is going to be the rotation from the turn. When I settle, I'm turning towards this opposite side leg, and to collect, I have to bring the upper waist or the turn towards the new standing leg. So that is settle, collect. So you can practice those two motions, and we're going to use both of them as we walk downstairs. The core pattern for moving downstairs will begin with the swing leg going down, and that is going to be push. We're going to push going down. Extension of my right hip, turning on the right, tucking on the right. Push down, then settle by flexing or pulling up on my left hip. Now collect by turning on the left. So I have push down, settle, collect. And then we repeat the sequence. Push down, settle, and then if I was going to continue going downstairs, I would collect again. So we have push down, settle, collect. Push down, settle, and if we have already gotten to the lowest step from the settle, now we're going to do lift. And the lift is going to walk us forward with a normal swing through. Now I'm going to add one additional component as we go downstairs, and that's going to be how we make sure we stop before we fall off the front of the step. We have to be able to slow ourselves down, and we usually do this subconsciously, but what we're going to be doing most times is reach. Because we're not always going to have the right leg length going to step in the right position to go down. So we're generally going to try to put our foot down right in front of the step before we go down. That reach is going to put my foot down in front of the step, allowing me to put on the brakes in a controlled fashion. So as I'm walking, I reach, that stops my forward progression. Now I can settle, collect, push, settle, collect, push, settle, and then lift.